And today we're diving into a topic that blurs the lines between fiction and reality. Gen Z, social media, and some real-world laws that sound like they're straight out of a dystopian novel.
Ooh, that sounds intense.
It is. Get ready for some surprises. We're looking at two sources today. A fictional excerpt from this book called Generation Z Uprising, where the government has, completely banned social media and cell phones for Gen Z.
Oh, a complete ban.
Yeah. And then we'll look at this real-world law that was passed in Florida that puts some pretty serious restrictions on social media access for kids under 14. It's like fiction mirroring reality in a really unsettling way.
That's pretty wild. I'm intrigued.
Let's jump right in. So this fictional world in Generation Z Uprising, it's not just your typical teens versus adults story. It's about information control, about a generation that's literally fighting for their right to connect, their right to express themselves digitally.
You know, it's fascinating how this book taps into our deepest anxieties about who shapes the narrative, especially for a generation that's grown up online. Historically, attempts to control information, especially among young people, have rarely ended well.
Right.
Think about the banning of books, the suppression of music, even the control of language itself. The desire to shield, to mold, often clashes with the very nature of progress and evolution.
Yeah, I mean, look at history, right? It seems like every generation has its own version of this struggle.
Absolutely.
And what's crazy is that we have this real-world example brewing right now with this Florida law.
Mm-hmm.
Starting in January 2025, no social media accounts for kids under 14. Parental permission needed for 14 and 15-year-olds. And if platforms don't comply, they face massive fines. It's a bold move, to say the least.
It is. It definitely raises a lot of questions. On the surface, the law aims to protect children from the potential harms of social media, right? But it also raises concerns about government overreach, especially when it comes to online spaces. The law's critics argue that it infringes on the First Amendment rights of both children and parents.
So how does this law actually work? How are they going to verify ages? What about the teens who use social media for positive things, like connecting with support groups or finding mentors?
Right, or educational resources.
Yeah, exactly.
Those are some of the biggest challenges, right? The law is kind of vague on the specifics of age verification, it places the burden on social media companies to figure it out.
Wow.
Which could lead to invasive data collection or even reliance on third-party verification services, which is a whole other can of worms.
Yeah.
And as you said, there's a vast spectrum of how teenagers engage with social media. It's not just about mindless scrolling or potential dangers. It's a vital tool for many, especially for marginalized youth who find community and support online.
And this law, it's already facing legal challenges for
Yeah, a hearing is actually scheduled for late February, and the arguments will likely center on those First Amendment rights. It'll be interesting to see how the court weighs the state's interest in protecting children against the potential restrictions on freedom of speech and access to information. This case could set a precedent for future legislation regarding online access and age restrictions.
So basically, we're watching a real-time experiment play out in a way.
Kinda, yeah.
What are your thoughts on the potential consequences? Could this law actually backfire?
Oh, the potential for unintended consequences is definitely there. Imagine a scenario where kids, unable to access mainstream platforms, end up migrating to less regulated corners of the internet. The very risks the law aims to prevent could be amplified. Plus, think about the impact on innovation. Could this stifle the development of online tools specifically designed for positive youth engagement?
That's a good point. And what about the social media companies themselves? This could be a major upheaval for them, couldn't it?
Absolutely. Imagine the logistical nightmare of verifying ages for millions of users, the potential loss of a significant portion of their user base, and the constant threat of those hefty fines. It could force them to make difficult choices about their platforms, their algorithms, and even their business model.
Yeah. It's almost like a mirror image of what happens in Generation Z Uprising, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the book, the tech ban leads to this underground movement. Kids are creating their own secret networks to share information and connect. Could we see something similar happen in real life? Obviously, maybe not as dramatic, but...
It's not entirely out of the realm of possibility. History shows us that restrictions often breed creativity, pushing people to find workarounds and alternative solutions. We could see the rise of new platforms specifically designed for youth, operating outside the purview of traditional social media, or perhaps a resurgence of older forms of communication and community building.
So we've got this fictional world where Gen Z is fighting for their digital freedom. And then we have this real-world law that's, attempting to control that freedom, all in the name of protection. It raises so many questions about where we draw the line, about who gets to decide what's safe and what's not. What I find most intriguing is this underlying tension between protection and empowerment. How do we as a society navigate this digital landscape in a way that safeguards young people without stifling their growth and their right to explore, to connect, to learn? It's a conversation that needs to happen not just among lawmakers, but within families, schools, and communities.
You're absolutely right. We need to move beyond simplistic solutions and engage in a more nuanced discussion that acknowledges the complexities of the digital age. We need to foster digital literacy, critical thinking skills, and responsible online behavior. And perhaps most importantly, we need to listen to young people themselves, understand their experiences, and empower them to be active participants in shaping the digital future.
Definitely food for thought for all of us as we navigate this ever-evolving world. This isn't just about a law in Florida or a fictional book. It's about the future of a generation, and the choices we made today that will shape that future.
Well said.
Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. It's been quite a journey.
It really has.
And to our listeners, keep those conversations going, keep thinking critically, and stay engaged, because the future of the digital world, well, it's in all of our hands.
Check out Generation Z Uprising, the podcast that's sparking conversation. Tune in on the Generation Z Uprising YouTube channel and follow us across all social media platforms. Don't miss out. Join the movement today.